GAIL CHORD SHULER. I believe I'm saying her name correctly. Where have you been all my life? I had kind of heard about this person. Her reputation precedes her, let's put it that way. But I never really watched anything by her or really was aware of her until someone posted a link in Trolls, Haters, Naysayers a few days ago. And let me tell you, this is crazy on a next level. I mean, I think she. Listen, this is what I do know, okay? She claims that in 2012, Jesus revealed himself to her, gave her some mission. She wrote some second Bible, from what I understand. She calls it something. Whatever. You can access it through her blogs, of course. She believes that the Jesuit empire has placed trolls on the internet to stalk her. But her big claim to fame is she says that she's been in this relationship with Brent Spiner. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. If you don't know who that is, that's the guy who plays Data on Star Trek, right? But it gets better than that. She claims the guy that we see on TV and that denies the relationship is a clone. Yes, that's right. That's a clone, but she's been in this secret relationship with the real Brent Spiner for years. She is obsessed. Apparently, she's stalked the guy. Listen, Tila Tequila, you are staring at your future here. Now, there's obviously a lot of parallels there, right? We got the divine intervention, the messages from Jesus. We got the clones. What is it with clones and these people? I don't know. We got, the trolls are all part of some satanic cabal or whatever, right? The parallels are there. The difference is Tila Tequila is flaky. She's definitely cray-cray, but she's part performance. Like, she's kind of borderline con artist as far as I'm concerned. This lady is performance as well, but she's drinking her own Kool-Aid, if you know what I'm saying. And I do want to point out, I believe she legitimately has mental health issues, right? So this video in no way is to harass her, and I'm not in any way condoning anyone that would try to manipulate her or like troll her that way, but the video is very interesting. In this one, she rationalizes or attempts to why she is allowed, her alone, to have multiple lovers. Yes, apparently there's some cult, Gail's men or something. She is perplexed why literally throngs of thousands of men want to make love to her. But anyways, I'm going to let her do the talking. It's a 15-minute video. We're just going to roll through it. Let's check it out. Thank you for joining me yet again on this roller coaster ride through Weirdo Wonderland. Here we go.
Jesus first discussed my marriage list in 2012, and I've had time to reflect on it, and I feel the reason Jesus does not mind me making love to more than one man is because I actually prefer monogamy, and because my true husband, Brent Spiner, has decided that the best reward for the other men on the marriage list is to allow me to make love to them as a reward. Because I'm doing so much of God's very important work now and need a band of men to support Brent and I, Jesus approves of me loving more than one man. Jesus gave me the song Somewhere from West Side Story as a promise in 1992, while I was still married to my ex-husband Brent, and when Brent was making love to me on the phone.
Now, I know I'm stopping it at a juicy part here, but she does correct herself. Her ex-husband is David. Her new lover, among others, is Brent Spiner, the guy who played Data on Star Trek. Moving right along.
And he told me to wait for his time before going to Brent. He said, don't. Even though Brent asked if he could come over, I want you to continue to say no to him and to wait for my time. And it was very difficult, and that's what I did. I have King David's heart, and this makes me different. So Jesus has different rules for me because I'm not like most people in my attitude towards sex, love, and marriage. It's kind of like how if Adam and Eve never sinned, then it wouldn't be necessary to have the rule about wearing clothes because they never sinned. So if the problem that causes Jesus to make a rule doesn't exist for a person, Jesus doesn't need to enforce that rule for that person. And because most people have a problem with lust and using sex for selfish reasons, Jesus has laid down the law of one man for one woman at a time. But this is apparently not a problem for me and Brent Spiner.
All right, so just to recap here, you know, everybody else in the world only uses sex for lust, sin of the flesh, but this rule apparently has been weighed for her and her only because she does God's work, and it's necessary to reward these men because her whole mission is contingent on their support. Are you guys following this? Let's just keep going.
I'm talking about the real Brent Spiner, not his clone. Lori
Not the
McBride and her
clone.
minions try to condemn me because a bunch of famous guys want to bed me. I actually could care less about this, and this may be just the reason that Jesus does not have a problem with, for me, having more than one man. And for people who have the King David heart like I do, my motive for making love to more than one man is to reward them for their unselfish and courageous support of me and Brent against our battle with the Jesuits. In fact, if Brent and I didn't have to fight the Jesuit empire, I would definitely prefer to confine my loving to Brent alone. Jesus knows my heart, and that's why he approves of polygamy for me alone, and for the most part. However, Brent is my definite favorite and gets about 95% of the brain-to-brain loving.
Now, this is this is where it takes crazy to a new level here, folks. Brain to brain loving. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. Brain to brain loving. So she's just rewarding men. Okay? She doesn't take pleasure in this. That's why Jesus allows her to do it. Brain to brain loving. Let's check this out.
However, as of August 2019, I've only actually had sex with one man my entire life, my ex-husband David. I don't consider brain-to-brain loving to be sex, and I'm not really into polygamy, which is probably why Jesus approves of it for me. I know lots of Jesuit and evil women, along with my jealous sister Sandra Metcalf.
Okay. Sorry, I got to cut it there. But so apparently... whatever. A rule has been weighed for her alone that she doesn't even do anyways. Like, what the hell? I want to know more about this. What's brain to brain? Whatever. Let's keep going.
Are upset that a horde of famous men find me hot. I consider the fact that so many want me as a bit of a pain sometimes, and really don't give a flip about it, except I feel bad for the men when they're targeted for loving me. And that's my motive for loving them, to reward them for their courage to side with me and Brent. If I wasn't such a target and if the Jesuits didn't obsess over me, I'd prefer to just have Brent alone as my lover and husband.
But she's forced.
Actually, there's a part of me that wishes
to have
life
multiple
was
men,
simpler, and that I didn't have thousands of men who dream about me, and that I wish sometimes it was just me and Brent alone. I hate dealing with an empire, the Lori McBride Jesuits, that keep me from my deep and true love, the real Brent Spiner. If I could just have Brent and live in a house somewhere where nobody could find us, I could be content. But that's not my life. I was destined to be the King David, Catherine the Great woman, to be famous, something I actually hate. And to have a horde of men dream about me, which boggles my mind to this day.
So basically, you're saying your mission is to be the town pump for Jesus. All right, let's keep going.
I realize it's a reality of my life, but in some ways I don't like it, because it makes some evil people jealous of me, and these jealous ones, Lori McBride, Camilla Alves, my sister Sandra Metcalf, and all the sorry people who are competing with me, like Melania Trump, and their obsession over my love life. I hate that. It makes my life and the life of the real Brent Spiner a hell on earth. Actually, it's the vastness inside of me and Brent that sustains Brent and I. We see the beauty in each other's souls, and we...
You notice that she's commonly flips between Brett and Brent, right? Is that just me? Is that just my... I mean, I let it go a couple times because I'm like, okay, she just misspoke. But right there in the same sentence, she called him Brett than Brent. I'm just pointing that out.
We inspire each other to fight on for true love and greatness. Jesus loves this about me, that Brent and I are so big we don't have a jealous bone in our bodies. And so having more than one husband is cool with Jesus for me, because we use our sex drive to promote honor, truth, justice, and love, and there is no selfish motive for what we do with our sexual lives. But that isn't true for most people. And so Jesus has to lay down the rule of one man for one woman in marriage for everybody else. And that might be why he gave those men vagina butts, because he wanted to show that they did not deserve to be on my marriage list, and he wanted them kicked out.
You heard right. Vagina butts. Manginas. There apparently have been men cursed with mangina. Oh God, you can't script this stuff, folks. You can't script this stuff.
Like Viggo Mortensen and all those Gales men going their own way, I'm certain that in the millennium, they will not be part of the men that I will be making love to. And Jesus wanted to make it clear, so he gave them vagina butts to show their true hearts that they are not worthy to be on my marriage list. Brent and I, we always use sex to nurture, but that isn't true of everyone else. But most people, about at least 95% of the human race, sometimes use sex to compete and destroy, like what those Gales men do in their own way are doing right now. No, I don't think that Jesus ever considered them part of my marriage list. And he wanted to make that clear. That's why he gave them the vagina butts, because he knew what they would do. King David was pretty cool, except when I'm half King David, by the way, except when he committed adultery. And Jesus tells me I'm just like little David, which is King David before he sinned with Bathsheba, when he was young, pure, and vast. So with Jesus, it's cool with him that I have more than one husband.
It's
He'll
cool.
even allow me to make love to more than one in the millennium, because I'm just like little David. In fact, I have a transcript of our conversation with Jesus with that. We were shocked. Jesus, don't you object to me having more than one husband? So just read it. I'll have a link to that underneath this video. We were shocked at what he said. He doesn't have a problem with it for me. But he said that rule is pretty much for me alone, that in the millennium, he's going to pretty much expect everybody else to have one man and one wife relationship. And he said, I'm the exception. So I said, why am I the exception? He said, it's cool. He said, it's down with me.
He's down with Jesus.
And he said that in the millennium, that that marriage is going to be beyond sex. And I think what that means is that he's going to redefine what constitutes marriage in the millennium. And it's going to be probably even broader. It'll encompass more than what we consider marriage in this world today.
Well, I think for most people, marriage is more than just sex. I mean, that's a major component, obviously, but I mean, you're not just hooking up with someone for the rest of your life because of sex. And I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I'm pretty sure the good book expresses that as well. But anyways, I'm not here to get into a theological debate with this woman. Let's just keep enjoying it.
Okay. So, but I'm not going to go there because that's the future and it's not what we need to worry about right now. But he did say marriage is beyond sex in the millennium, and I'm not sure how to interpret that. In Bible for Tribulation Saints, I have that there. So anyways, so he said that it was cool. He would allow me to make love to more than one in the millennium, because I'm just like little David, and David was a man after God's own heart. I can hear the objections from some preachers and Christians, but that person who spoke with you is not Jesus. He's a fraud. Sorry, folks, it was Jesus. If you had spiritual discernment, you could tell. I take all that Jesus said to me just as seriously as I do the Bible. In fact, I think Jesus might have used me to add to the biblical canon in Bible for Tribulation Saints. And I'll have a link underneath this video to what he said about marriage.
Right.
It's he said this to me March 9, 2012, and it's in Bible for Tribulation Saints, and I have it also as an audio reading. So I'll have a link to that page underneath this video. You know, it's like when Jesus appeared to his disciples. Some people were deep into their agendas, and some didn't want Jesus to interfere with their plans. So they made up stories about Jesus and spread lies about him so folks would not believe that he'd actually appeared with his disciples. I personally think Jesus has appeared to help use me to prepare the world for the tribulation, that's future, when the rules are going to change. He says that I and my men are going through what the tribulation saints are going through. That's probably why he's using us as examples right now. Jesus is in rehearsals for his millennial reign. That's what I think. And that's the future 1,000-year reign of Christ. You can believe me or not, but I believe he's used me to reveal some new truths about himself and what's necessary to honor God in these times, because now is the time for him to reveal these truths. Frankly, I don't give a hoot what most people think of me, and that's because most people don't have a heart for God, so their opinions mean nothing to me because they're fools not worth listening to. A heart for God means a person who cares about living a life of truth and love, which most people sadly don't seem to care about. But I know I'm telling the truth. I've read the Bible from cover to cover hundreds of times and have no doubt that what Jesus said in my Bible for Tribulation Saints, my transcript of all my conversations with Jesus, mostly through Brent Spiner, are words from the deity himself. And you will be held accountable at the judgment for how you respond to what Jesus told me. If you don't believe me, it might be because you have an evil heart and don't want to believe me, or you may be a retard who doesn't have much of an IQ. If you're a retard, God will forgive you. If you don't believe me because you don't want to believe me, you will be judged.
Ooh, I love it. It always comes down to threats with these people. Like, if you criticize them at all or call them out for being crazy, you got an evil heart or you're a retard. Can't argue with that logic. Golly.
You can get Bible for Tribulation Saints at Amazon. I have it very cheap as a Kindle book. And that's a pretty good deal, about $5 something, considering it's the size of the Bible. I consider this book just as important as the Bible for our time. See, I didn't write it for money. I'm basically selling it for you just enough to cover costs of, making the book. You can laugh at me and say I'm crazy, but
you're crazy.
Jesus knows your heart. Okay?
You're crazy.
He knows if you're just making excuses, and he knows what you really believe deep down inside. You will be held accountable for what Jesus said in Bible for Tribulation Saints. That book has as much weight as the Bible because I have exact quotes from Jesus in there. You disregard what's in there at the peril of your soul. Now, here's what Jesus has said about polygamy for me and how that's in Bible. I have a quote for that. And also I have a quote about how he feels about homosexuality. Now, this is what he said. Just check the link underneath this video to read what he said. If you don't like it, then maybe you don't like Jesus. To be honest, what Jesus has said is not necessarily how I feel. As I've said, I prefer monogamy. But this is what the deity himself said. You can take it or leave it. I know lots of proud sinners out there are going to leave it. That is, they're going to disregard what Jesus said to me. And they're going to make up their own rules or adhere to the rules of the group they belong to and totally disregard what the deity himself says and feels about sexual matters. You might say, this contradicts the Bible. Actually, Jesus said he doesn't have a problem with homosexuality. But you can, I'll let you read the exact quote. Just check the link underneath this video. You might say, this contradicts the Bible. No, it does not.
Well, yeah, it does. It blatantly does. I mean, it makes pretty clear in the Old Testament and the New Testament that a man is not to lay with a man. But this is a good opportunity. I hear this, and not just from crazy people. I've heard this from Christian apologists as well. This argument she's going to come up with here in a second. Basically, it's circular. It's just, it's not a contradiction because God did it, right? And God can't, commit contradictions because he's a perfect being. We just don't understand it. It really, watch. Let's check it out.
You got to understand, God wrote the Bible, not you. You're full of hubris if you think your interpretation of it is right on everything, or even if the interpretation of your friends is right on everything. You can't expect the simple human mind to understand all the complexities of the divine mind. That's called humility.
Well, I mean, it's excuse me, I'm not a Christian, but I thought the whole point of the Bible was kind of like giving man an instruction book on how to do things, right? And when it blatantly says a man is not to lie with another man, even prescribing how to stone and kill people for the different sins it outlines, I think that's pretty explicit. I think, if God is this perfect, omniscient being, he would know how to convey that message rather clearly. Just saying.
which leads to an open heart, the first condition to being right with God. I've actually gotten in trouble with Jesus by allowing some preachers with a lot of hubris influence me into being a bigot against the truth. I've learned that when I keep my heart open, that's when I'm closest to God and his truth. Jesus hates closed-minded followers, whatever your persuasion.
Apparently her heart and her legs, people. Because remember, God told her she can take multiple dicks. It's all good. Because she doesn't do it for satisfaction. She does it for rewards.
Maybe liberal, conservative, or whatever. Jesus is all about balance. Though Jesus is not against homosexuality per se, I also don't think he wants anyone to glory in their sexual preference to the point that you show extreme intolerance towards those who don't share your beliefs. This also means showing tolerance towards straight people, not forcing them to adopt views that make them uncomfortable. The main thing is to honor the law of love with each other despite our differences. You know, I'm not sure how God feels about people getting sex change operations.
So just so we're clear, Jesus doesn't want to force values or belief systems that might make you uncomfortable. Okay? I know she's talking about something specifically, but just in general, does that sound like Christianity to you at all? Does that sound like the God of the Bible? You know what? I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm going to put it out there as a rule. It's there. If you want to follow it, just don't make anybody feel uncomfortable with you feeling uncomfortable. And I don't know. Just doesn't jive with what I've read, but let's move on.
But my guess is he might feel this is foolish. It sounds like a mentally unhealthy way to deal with having a self-image problem. Our society has gotten to the point that the insecure feel the only way to make themselves feel better is to attack those who differ from them in sexual preference. I say, relax, cool it, learn to accept who you are, and leave others to practice sex that makes them happy as long as it's not abusive. In other words, find out what brings you love and fulfillment and allow others to find it in their own way as long as they're not abusive or selfish in how they go about it.
Well, what if someone wants to practice polygamy and they're not you?
And regarding abortion, Jesus said he prefers that most abortions don't happen because he has plans for those babies, but sometimes babies aren't meant to be born. Okay, so check the...
Wait a minute. Jesus says that there are babies that weren't meant to be born. Oops. Fuck.
Link underneath this page to find out how Jesus feels about how we conduct our sex lives.
And look, this is the thing. I get that people troll her, but I mean, people actually support this shit. That's what I'm saying. These are enablers. See these names? Every one of these motherfuckers enable this crazy lady to rant and further and promote. That's worse than trolling her. I think that, this lady definitely has some psychological problems. I think she's drinking from her own Kool-Aid. But I mean, look at this. People enable it. This is worse to me than trolling her. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Wow. Well, that was a long, crazy ride. But I don't know. We'll keep an eye on this and see how it develops. Until next time, thanks for watching.